Sunday Night Saffron, a babble about religion and all things ethnic, with John Saffron and Father Bob Maguire.
On Triple J.
Salam, Father Bob Maguire.
Phone to you, sir.
Now, dear listeners,
They should be warned, shouldn't they?
Tonight, me and Bob can't self-indulgently talk about our own lives because it's such a packed show filled with so many interesting things, including but not limited to
David
Icke. Now, David Icke is either a truth seeker or a conspiracy theorist, depending on which side you lay on. And he's infamous and famous within that community. Now, we're gonna play a little snippet of his views here.
It has emerged from my research that, bizarre as it may seem, a reptilian race from another world, interbred with humanity in the far ancient world, creating hybrid crossbreed bloodlines. A reptilian extraterrestrial race has been controlling planet Earth for thousands of years.
That's David Icke. He's just been touring Australia. He gives 9-hour presentations.
Does he talk the whole time or what?
We recorded this interview earlier this week, and we were under instructions from his people. We're not allowed. Don't mention the lizards. That was like the condition of us getting the interview. So it was like a moral quandary for me. Like, do we still get him on having that restriction?
But you dropped the word.
This is the Sunday Night Saffron equivalent of you can get the Jennifer Aniston interview, but you can't mention Brad Pitt. This is our version of that. But we thought we'd get him in, Anyway, if I was to sum up this man, his beliefs in a little succinct sentence, dear listener, it's Noam Chomsky with lizards. He believes in powerful people pulling strings, but then there's the lizard thing comes up.
But you should have told me before the interview.
Well, but, dear listener, you'll have to stick around to see whether, despite this warning, did I break the conditions of the interview by bringing up the lizards anyway?
Well, the audience will be the judge.
And as well as that, after David Icke, we're going to be talking to Chris Rosebrough, who runs Pirate Christian Radio. He was an American evangelical, but then he ran away and became a member of what he sees as more traditional Christianity. And now on Christian Pirate Radio, he holds a blowtorch to American evangelicals and what he sees as their dodgy reading of the gospel in a very self-serving manner. For instance, give us your money, congregation, and God will be happy.
So he's evangelical himself, surely.
No.
But he's saying,
I mean, I don't mean it in the. I mean in the way that evangelical Christian is commonly understood. Yes. He's not right. Evangelical right. Christian. He's a Lutheran, if you must know.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Then after that, we're going to have Ray Comfort, who is another Christian minister, but he's put out a new documentary called 180. And Ray Comfort actually runs a ministry with Kurt Cameron of Growing Pains fame that maybe our older listeners will remember. For our younger listeners, if you've heard of Family Ties with Michael J. Fox, Growing Pains was like the poor man's knockoff at the same era. Like it was a bit like one was the Beatles and one was the Monkees. Mm-hmm. Or maybe for the kiddies, one was Lady Gaga and one was Keisha with the dollar sign where the S is. And Growing Pains was the poor man's version, and there was their Michael J. Fox was Kurt Cameron. Anyway, he's gone on to form this ministry with Ray Comfort, and they're very flammable and inflammable. Their angle is that Christians aren't direct enough with non-believers, so their angle is, listen, we've got to tell people. It's our obligation to tell them they're going to hell. Anyway, he's got a new movie, 180. Which refers to that it's about abortion, and that Ray feels that once people see this movie and once people understand his new argumentative techniques, they will turn around, if they're pro-choice, and become pro-life. And we're going to have
Clementine Ford.
Yes, local feminist.
Yeah, how does that? I'm a bit... Go on.
Because I thought, like, what am I going to know about? He's going to pull one over us. He's going to bulldoze us.
Oh, yes.
And she's written about having abortions herself.
Yes, righto.
So she's going to come in. And at first I thought the idea would be don't tell Clementine anything about this guy.
Yeah.
And then see whether his technique, because he has like this technique where he reckons in under like 3 minutes he can turn someone around on the whole abortion debate to see whether it worked on Clementine. But then I thought, I don't know, I just thought maybe it's more interesting to the listener if Clementine was more informed. Right. And then we have Icke, who's a Turk for Religious Song of the Week. Mm. I think it's like a mashup Turk.
No, not mashup Turk. What are you talking about?
Where he has like the Turk instruments, but then he puts a bit of human beatboxing, not human, electronica. Mm-hmm. You know that routine, dear listener. But coming up next, David Icke and the Secret Rulers of the World.
Yeah.
Sunday Night Saffron
on Triple J.
Sunday Night Saffron, that was California's Dum Dum Girls with Always Looking from the album Only in Dreams. You can get to see those ladies live. They're playing at the Pyramid Rock Fest as well as Pete's Ridge. You're listening to Triple J. I'm Bob Maguire. That's John Safran on the other side of the desk. Tonight we're going to talk to a pirate. That's the captain of Christian Pirate Radio in the States. Plus we head to the US again to talk to a minister who finds a link between the Holocaust and abortion. Right now, though, we're going to talk to British public speaker David Icke, a man who believes that the Brotherhood originates from reptilians. He'll be telling us who really is controlling the world.
It says you like to talk about who and what is really controlling the world. Now, for a lot of us, that would be, there must be politicians and bankers. But does it go higher and deeper than that?
Well, 21 years ago, I was reading the news, sitting in studios like this, saying hello, good evening, welcome, and my life transformed. It took a long time to talk about, but it did, and it set me on a journey of an amazing synchronistic journey of information and people and experiences coming to me, which made it very clear, and 21 years later, my goodness me, the evidence for it, the fine detail evidence is overwhelming, that actually a very few people are directing life on this planet. It's about 13 families and all the offshoot networks that go from them. And they sit on top of a global network that dictates to every country. And it's the way they've done it is this, and this is why politicians are not the point where decisions are made. They are the here today, gone tomorrow vehicles for those decisions made in the shadows to become changes in society through legislation. It's like if you think of a transnational corporation like McDonald's, you've got the headquarters at McDonald's, and that dictates to all the subsidiaries of McDonald's in every country. So if you go into a McDonald's in Moscow or Melbourne or anywhere, Johannesburg, you're going into the same McDonald's. And what they've set up is a network just like that, involving bloodline families and their gophers and agents and a secret society network.
And how long do these families go back?
They go back thousands of years. They go back into, a number of parts of the world, but the one that seems to be most significant is what we now call Iraq or Sumer, Mesopotamia, Babylon. And they have created this structure whereby the center of the web is in Europe, to an extent in America, but nothing like you'd think it was. To a large extent, the guns for America are loaded in Europe and they're shot by America, and then people say it's all America. And when I say Europe, I'm not saying the governments of Europe, they're here today, gone tomorrow, politicians. I'm saying the centre of this web, which is like the city of London, the financial district, Rome, Paris, Brussels, Germany. And in every country, including Australia, there is a network of families and secret societies that are the subsidiaries of that headquarters in Europe. And their job is to manipulate that country's banking system, financial system in general, politics, controlling any party that has a chance of forming a government or influencing policy, the business community, the transnationals and all that. And their job is to introduce in their sphere of influence, let's say Australia, what is dictated centrally at the centre of the web.
And would we have heard of any of these families?
Well, yes, you will have heard of some of them, the House of Rothschild, the House of Rockefeller, the royal families of Europe, who are ancient bloodlines going back to the ancient world. And the centre direction is dictated from this network in Europe. And in each country, their job is to introduce that in their particular sphere of influence. Now, over the last 21 years, I've been to over 55 countries researching this. And therefore, I've seen the same things being introduced in country after country at the same time, justified by the same excuses. This is where it comes from. This is where the coordination comes from. And the idea is this, quite simply. When there's a few of you, and compared with the global population, we're talking a very, very few, to get more and more power, you have to constantly centralize decision-making. And this is why at one point we had a tribal situation where people in the tribe decided what the tribe would do. Then lots and lots of tribes were brought together under what we call nations. And now a centre point is dictating to all the former tribes. And now in Europe, and they want it in every part of the world, including this part of the world, through APEC and ASEAN, we have the European Union, which is the nations pulled together, dictated from a central point. And where they want to go in this, and it's been going like this for so long, people have now given it a name for decades, globalization. That's what it is, centralization of power in all areas of our lives. And the more you centralize power, the more power you have at the center to centralize even quicker, and the whole thing goes on even faster. And what they want is this, eventually, and they're already talking about it now. We've reached that stage. They want a world government that would dictate to every country. They want a world central bank that would dictate all global finance. The Roman Church has just suggested it. And so is this House of Rothschild billionaire gopher called George Soros. He's suggested the same thing. And when he says it, it's the Rothschilds speaking. They want a world currency which would not be cash. It would be a single electronic currency. This is about control. And the other thing they want, and this is very, very relevant to current events, is they want a world army. And what we've seen with Libya and these other countries that have been invaded is exactly the official situation they want to go to, where the world army is called in by the world government to go and sort out anybody who is not taking orders.
So like the invasion of Libya, that was the Buckingham Palace and the Rothschilds and the other families. They decided that.
Absolutely.
And how much of your information comes from research compared with having these spiritual revelations that tell you?
The level we're talking about now, 100% research. When you've been to 55 countries and you've worked on this full time for 21 years, and not only that, when you see, as is happening now, my books from the mid-90s being read on the television news, in effect, in news stories that are happening. If people read a book I wrote in 1994, came out in 95, called And the Truth Shall Set You Free, and then they look at current events, they'll be shocked. This is not because I'm a prophet or sitting in a darkened room pulling it from the ether. It's that once you access, and the documents exist if you do the research and you meet the right people that can pass them on to you.
But you have had spiritual revelations, haven't you?
Well, yes, I have, and that, well, what you call spiritual revelations, yes, but they have been part of my own personal journey that's awakened me to the fact that the world is very different to the one that we are told we are experiencing. Thus, your attitude changes and your mind opens to all possibilities instead of being closed.
Is that explainable in words, what a spiritual revelation is like?
Not in the time we've got here. I mean, you go through profound changes in your perception of reality, and basically what you're doing is opening your mind.
Some of the, like, people would say, oh yeah, politicians are powerful and bankers are powerful. They'd agree with you on that. But some of the things you bring up, like, say, the Freemasons or secret societies, they'd say, nah, they're just...
So why are they secret societies?
They're just, they're not powerful. They don't pull
Why are they
strings.
secret societies? Why aren't they open societies? Why do they have degrees within the secret societies, which means even the people on the lower degrees within a secret society, who are Freemasons or Knights of Malta or Knights Templar, whichever you're talking about, even within the same secret society, people on lower degrees do not know what the higher degrees know. The vast majority of people, if you had, say all Freemasons were in on the plot, I mean, it would be out from... I mean, there'll be so many holes in the dike because these people have families and children and grandchildren as well, who are going to have to live in the world these guys want to create. So therefore, they'll be spilling the beans. So you keep it fiercely compartmentalised, and you only give the real knowledge to people you know are absolutely watertight safe, are in favour of what you're trying to do, and thus will not spill the beans.
What about another thing you talk about, which is like satanic cults? Do they really exist?
Oh, absolutely they do. It's something that these bloodlines have been doing for thousands of years, right back into the ancient world. And, at one point, because of the way that humanity was at that time, they could do it openly. I mean, no one has a problem with the fact that, there was sacrifice to the gods and all this stuff in the ancient world, and they sacrificed animals, children, it's all there. The point is, though, these particular bloodlines never stopped. The difference is they can't do it openly anymore. Of course they can't.
But they still do it behind closed doors.
Oh, absolutely.
So what, like Buckingham Palace, the Vatican, the Rothschilds, they do
big time.
Satanic rituals.
These bloodlines.
Like what?
Yeah. Well, it's a long, long story. This is why I talk for 9 hours. But it's something that is very, very important to them. Drinking blood is very important to them because of what the blood carries. And to get too bloody sick, but these people are sick beyond words, beyond extreme. At the point of a sacrifice, the victim is so absolutely beyond terrified that a particular adrenaline goes into the blood, and so immediately the person is sacrificed, they drink the blood with that adrenaline in it, which is like some kind of gives them a massive high. It's like a drug to them.
Because surely my Roman Church not involved in all that.
Oh yes, absolutely, and that's,
my Roman Church.
Yes, but that you see that's not. Why haven't
they told me?
I know exactly.
The Illuminati, these are.
Yeah, I mean, the Roman Church, as I say in my books, is the Church of Babylon relocated. And what we need to do, Bob, is to see the difference. This is fundamentally important between the people that follow a religion and the hierarchy. This is the point. The hierarchy that control the religion, because they're not the same thing. And so it's really a situation where, are we going to live what we claim to believe in, or are we going to just talk about it and then put the hierarchy first because it suits us, Oh, no, I don't want those people here. It's messy and all that stuff, Yes. This is a time where we are at a fork in the road, and we need to choose between if we want to keep our heads down, do nothing, hope it'll all go away, brackets, it won't, and live in this global fascist communist state, which is emerging by the day. I mean, police are getting more and more brutal all the time because they're the characters that they're now hiring. Or we can come together, put religious beliefs aside, racial nonsense aside, income bracket aside, culture and colour aside, and realise that if we come together as one people and respect our different rights to have different views. I mean, crikey, someone's got a different view than me. I mean, call the police. I mean, what? It's good that we have diversity, but not diversity in the sense that it divides and rules us, because that's what they want. They want the target population constantly fighting amongst itself on religious lines, political lines, economic lines, cultural lines, national lines. And while we're doing that, they're playing us like a violin,
Now we've got so much more to talk about. We're going to go to a song and come back after that.
Okay.
Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J.
Kiss the Sky, that's Sean Lee's Ping Pong, featuring Nino Moschella on Triple J with myself, Bob Maguire, and John Safran. Stick around, we'll be chatting to Minister Ray Comfort about his controversial anti-abortion documentary, plus Clementine Ford, the feminist blogger, will join us, and soon Chris Roseborough, I think it is, don't you? From Pirate Christian Radio. Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J. David Icke's in the studio with us, and...
Now, you were part of the Green Party.
Yeah.
And how does your worldview play into things like climate change and the reaction to climate change?
I think climate change is a gigantic hoax. It's scientific nonsense.
Cardinal Pell was right.
And even now, well, more and more, not even now, more and more people, including one who worked for the climate change department in Australia for a long time, and it was called another name before then, are coming out and saying, I was once a believer, but it's a nonsense. Have you noticed something? That there is something that is never mentioned in terms of the causes of temperature change. It's called the sun. Have you ever noticed that when you go out and the sun comes up, it gets warmer? I mean, it's a nonsense.
And so are these 13 families, do they want to perpetuate this? To what end?
Actually, it would be interesting to explain something at this point, which would make a lot of pennies drop in people, because climate change is part of this, or the alleged human-caused climate change is part of this. They have a technique which they've used for thousands of years, and it keeps working, so why change it? And it's used on us now at different levels of society all the time, every day. And I gave it the name many years ago, problem, reaction, solution. And it works like this. You want to change society in a way that you know that if you just announced it openly, you'd get a massive reaction against you. What are you doing that for? We're not having that, like more and more surveillance, more and more control, carbon taxation and all this stuff that comes in. So you don't just announce it openly. You play problem, reaction, solution. Stage one, you create a problem. It could be a terrorist attack like 9/11. It could be an economic crash like 2008 and since. It could be a government crash, whatever. Whatever problem you can offer a solution to that would advance your agenda. So stage one, you covertly create a problem. You then tell the public through an unquestioning, and I worked in it for a long time, unquestioning mainstream media, the version of the problem you want them to believe, i.e. 9/11 was caused or orchestrated by a guy in a cave in Afghanistan. I hope he had a mobile phone with a big battery. The economic crash was caused by this or that and what have you. And then you want a reaction at stage two from the public of fear, of outrage, and something to the effect of something must be done. What are you going to do about this problem? And then those who've covertly created the problem got that reaction, either do something or accepting what they suggest they have to do. When Tony Blair said, and if ever there's a half-truth in a Tony Blair speech, it's a typing error. We said one thing that was true, because he knew it was true. That is, the world changed on 9/11. Why? Because it was meant to change. All this police state, all these wars, they all come from that original driving force called 9/11, and that's why the world's changed. So without 9/11, all this stuff would not have been justified. So all these people that are pushing these wars and pushing more and more surveillance, more and more control, more and more police state, and it comes down eventually to have been triggered by one event, which was supposed to be Muslim terrorists who couldn't fly Cessnas properly somehow manifested this unbelievable ability to fly wide-body jets in ways that a Lufthansa pilot, German airline, told me he couldn't do after 28 years of flying them. If one strand of the 9/11 official story is true, then this strand and that strand can't be true. A 15-year-old or less could take it apart. The mainstream media, unfortunately, don't seem able to or are unwilling to.
Who are the powerful families in Australia?
Well, in the end, the Rothschild influence is everywhere. And, if you look at people in Australia will know the families better than I will, having the fact that I don't live here. But you look at the major families that are influential in media ownership, in corporation ownership, in manipulating or being part of the political system, and there you're going to see the families.
Like the Murdochs, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, dear, Murdoch. What? Absolutely. And what do the Murdochs of this world control? They control so much of the information that people receive. Now, from what do people get their perceptions of the world, perceptions of themselves, and perceptions of current events from? The perceived information about what's going on. If you make that tilted, and it's massively tilted, so you give a certain version of what's going on and ignore the rest, i.e., you take an American government under George Bush and a British government under Tony Blair, who provably lied through their teeth about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And it's coming out more and more in these various inquiries that they did it absolutely knowingly, so they did. They were the same people that told us the official story of 9/11. So we've got a media that says, oh, yeah, they did lie over weapons. Yes, mate. But the same people are telling you the official story of 9/11, and you're repeating it as if it's official history. This is what I mean, that if you control the information that people receive, you dictate, unless they really are open-minded people that do their own research, you're dictating their perception.
Now, there's anti-globalisation protesters who would generally agree with you, and then they say you take it too far when you talk about the 13 families, because you go back and then it's like, do they come from another planet? Were they another life form? Were they lizards? And
that's right.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the lizards.
And that kind of throws people off.
Well, let me say this. I don't care. You know why? I'm interested in the truth. And the truth is what I will pursue. And the truth, as the information I've come across makes me see it, is what I will communicate. And I would say to the G8 and G20 and globalization protesters, it's not me that's gone too far. It's you that's not gone far enough. When you see the incredible coordination of the attacks on humanity, in terms of finance, in terms of governments, in terms of the stuff in food and water, you got fluoride in your water in Melbourne and in Sydney.
But what's that got to do with like creatures from other planets then?
Never mind creatures from other planets. I mean, you know, that's a very, very deep subject. And as told your producer, if people want to talk to me for hours about it, I will. But I'm certainly not going to talk about massive concepts and stuff that take a lot of explanation. Because
we've got time.
I know you're interested, but, you know, I ain't going to have the time here to talk about it at the length that is necessary to explain it in a logical fashion. Thus, what's the point? People can get the fine detail in the books if they want. But the thing is that we are looking at this incredible attack on humanity, stuff in the water. What does fluoride matter? I tell you what fluoride matters. It was used in the concentration camps in Germany to suppress and make more docile the inmates. It's been shown to be a suppressor of brain activity. Fluoride in your water that you are drinking every day actually is a waste product of the aluminium industry. It's used in sarin nerve gas. It's used in Prozac. You know, I mean, this is the stuff they're putting in the water. Another thing, and more dentists, like the global warming scientists, who went with the official line for a long time, are now coming out and saying, actually, it's really bad for you. I mean, you know, tell people with fluorosis, that terrible discoloration of the teeth, that fluoride is good for teeth. It's not. So why would the people running Australia put this stuff in the drinking water? If people are manipulated enough to believe fluoride is good for their teeth, they're getting it in toothpaste anyway. Why would they put it in the water, giving people no choice, unless they'd use bottled water, than to drink it? Why would they do that? Why would they put chemicals and chemical concoctions in the food, massively emphasized targeting children, that changes their behavior and causes this thing called attention deficit disorder? And what do? He's got attention deficit disorder. We need to give him this mind-altering drug. Why would they do that?
Well, what's the answer to that?
Well, the answer is what I said right at the start. There is a global network which has a centre point in Europe, and it dictates global policy through its subsidiaries in each country. Now, why are the same people that are putting fluoride in your water, that are putting this rubbish in the food, also pressurizing and sometimes through law imposing upon people, parents, that they should vaccinate their child with this rubbish to this extent before the age of 2, never mind after that. Why? Because there is... And why is it happening in every country? Because this web is coordinating it. And this is why, people that get into politics who are genuine... And you'll have come across them, Bob, rarely probably, but we all have. They're the ones that never become prime minister, never get into government. It's the people that get into government that are serving this agenda because the networks manipulate them into government. Julia Gillard is not running this country for Australians. John Howard wasn't running this country for Australians. Abbott won't run this country for Australians. They run it for the cabal, and that's why we have this outrageous situation, and Australia is a wonderful example. You have this massive area of land. You have enormous resources. There are 22 million people on this massive area of land with this massive resources. And there's people sleeping rough in the streets. There's people going without food. There's people going without basics. What on earth is going on if this country is run for the people of Australia and not run for the people controlling Australia?
Who's the king of the world?
Well,
so to speak.
The House of Rothschild is absolutely
but is there
right in there. Well, the thing is, Bob, that you go on this journey of uncovering, and what you're kind of doing symbolically is you're removing the skins on the onion, and you reach a point where you see Rothschilds, Rockefeller, the royal families of Europe, and that sort of stuff.
But not Her Majesty the Queen, surely.
Of course, that whole family's involved in it.
Disillusioned.
Well, you know the royal family. And it came out in the mainstream media this week, and it's been in my books for years. They are related to Vlad Dracul and the original Dracula family from Transylvania. I mean, yes. I mean, Prince Charles this week has come out starting a campaign to save forests in Transylvania because it came out in the story in the British mainstream media that because they are genetically related to these people. And you look what Vlad Dracul was bloody doing.
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler. He was one of history's greatest blood drinkers. This is what these bloodlines do.
Can we do anything? Are you not only exposing, but you're also suggesting a final solution?
Well, what is starting to happen with these protests all around the world is something I've been calling for years, which is non-compliance. I call it the non-comply dance. Where you don't comply with your own enslavement. Because people say, well, they passed the law, so you've got to obey the law. Excuse me, what if they passed a law that they're going to take your children away and they can take it? Would you obey that law? Well, no. Well, there's a line then where we can where you say that you won't cross. Well, let's just see where this line really should be. And if we're saying you can't not obey the law, then we might as well just put the shackles and the chains on now, because we're saying that when a group of people in different parties that are basically masks on the same face, but when they pass a law in Parliament which you've had no say over, and like with Gillard and the carbon tax, you can say that you will never introduce a carbon tax, and then you can go and do it. So elections are a waste of time because whatever they tell you they'll do to get you vote, they ain't going to do anyway. You had a referendum about the carbon tax, it would have got wiped off the screen. What we need to say is, does this law that this cabal in each country is passing, does it respect human dignity? Does it respect human fairness? Does it respect human justice? And if it doesn't, is this law aimed at taking freedoms away? And if the answer is to the fact that it is, then we should not obey it. And what we're seeing now is large numbers of people around the world, because of their experience in their own lives, are now seeing, actually, that there is this is where the 99.1% came from. There is a tiny number of people running their lives. And it's not just financially, although that's a major way that they do it.
We've run out of time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, people can go to davidicke.com or the Lion Sleeps No More tour.com to find out more. Thank you so much for
talking to us. Been a real pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Bob.
Cheers,
mate.
Thank you, David.
Sunday Night Saffron.
Triple J.
Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J. You just heard Mr. Polite from Brisbane's The Jungle Giants, who are featured on Triple J Unearthed. Now it's time to hang out with a pirate. He's the captain of Christian... We're going to have a talk before this?
No.
Christian
He's
Pirate
waiting for
Radio,
us on the other end of the
he
line.
joins us from Indianapolis. Hello, Chris.
Good morning. Well, actually, I don't know what time it is.
Early in the morning too, isn't it?
Now, you converted to Lutheranism out of American evangelicalism because you saw you were on your way to hell. Strong words.
Yep.
Why were you on the way to hell being an American evangelical?
Well, because God was always angry at me. I could never figure out how to make him happy because about the only thing I was ever given in the churches I was attending was a steady diet of demands that God was placing on my life. And being a young man, I wasn't able to achieve any sort of perfection in attaining control on any given day over my life in a way that these pastors would say was pleasing to God. So I was pretty much convinced that God was angry at me and wanted to throw my carcass into hell.
What are some examples of these demands?
They always have something to do with personal behavior. So Christians when I was growing up were people who didn't watch particular television programs, didn't think particular thoughts, especially thoughts that had anything to do with sex and attraction to the opposite sex. You don't drink, you don't smoke. It's all of this stuff. And if you abide by these particular rules, then God is up in heaven and He's happy with you, and He puts stars on your star chart and rewards you with blessings. But if you don't do it perfectly, well then, you've got to be born again, or something, because you've got sin in your life that you've got to get rid of. And if you don't get rid of it, God's going to send you to hell.
But isn't God upset at things like sex before marriage and homosexuality and taking drugs and everything?
Well, truly, those are sins that invoke God's wrath. Absolutely, those are sins that you don't sit there and say, yes, God approves of those. He doesn't approve of those. The issue is, how is that resolved in the Christian life? Because you talk to somebody who claims to be a Christian and spend just a few minutes with them, and you'll realize that they're not a saint. If you define saint as somebody who's perfectly holy and sinless, but they're just like you and me. They've got problems and hang-ups and sins that they're committing, and so the question is, how is that resolved? And that's one of the reasons I'm in Lutheranism, because of the emphasis on both God's law and the gospel being Christ died for our sins as the solution to our problem, not the solution being you pull yourself up by your moral bootstraps.
You talk a lot about purpose-driven ministries, and I think seeker-driven ministries. What are they? What are they?
Well, we're talking about the seeker-driven church movement, which is, you can call it the modern megachurch movement. It's a very interesting new thing that has come into Christianity that basically takes the business management leadership principles of Peter Drucker, melds them to kind of a modified Finneyite revivalistic thing, in order to create kind of like a perpetual experience of some kind of event, a spiritual event that's going on that's supposedly, bringing people to Jesus.
And they often sound a lot like self-help programs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's on purpose. No pun intended, but the idea there is that they believe that the measure, the way that you can tell with certainty that God is somehow working in their ministry is through what they call life transformation or changed lives. So the way you can tell that God is blessing your ministry is that you got ever-increasing numbers of people attending your megachurch, and then they have personal testimonies of life change. And in order for lives to be changed, you got to give them practical steps on how they can go from where they are to where they want to be. And so when I was growing up, the model was some kind of a Wesleyan holiness. nowadays, that's too hard. It's too difficult to get to life change that way. So nowadays, they give you tips on how to maybe manage your budget, have spicier sex in the bedroom with your spouse, how to have better behaved children, how to use a day planner. I mean, I've seen all kinds of interesting sermons, along the lines, and then they'll have somebody say, "Oh, my life has changed because I've started using a day planner," and then they'll praise God for it and claim that that another life has been transformed as a result of their ministry.
Because I've heard your radio show a few times, and often you say things that they talk about are just things that aren't in the gospel. Like the gospel isn't all about, how can you make money, to state the obvious. And that maybe you'll pray to God and won't get money, and so you can't base your Christianity around finance.
Well, yeah, I think the ultimate proof of that is I think every Christian would agree that Jesus Christ was a sinless man, and he was not a model of health, wealth, and prosperity. I think the cross and him being crucified kind of dispels all of that. But they somehow think that if you're living an affluent middle class or upper middle class lifestyle, that you're out of credit card debt, you have a 6-bedroom home, 2.3 children that are well behaved, and a decent luxury sedan sitting in your car park, then you're being blessed by God. Actually, you actually may be cursed by God at that point, because if you're putting your trust in yourself and seeing that these things that you've acquired are somehow proof of God's blessing, you're looking at the wrong thing.
Now, tithing is when you give 10% of your earnings to
gross income.
To who? Like according to the gospel, who is it to? And then according to these mega churches, who is it to?
Well, there's two things you have to keep in mind in the Bible. When you look at the Old Testament, civil laws, you have to think of them much the same way you would like the U.S. Constitution or any kind of a legal code for a land. There was an income tax that was exacted on the people of Israel that the other tribes had. There was 12 tribes in Israel, and 11 of them had to pay this tithe in order to support one tribe, that tribe being the Levites. And so what happens is that there are commands in the Old Testament for the people of Israel to give 10% of their agricultural produce and things like that, specifically for them taking care of the ministry of God performed by the Levites. However, when you get into the New Testament, the Levitical system is not something that applies outside of the land of Israel, and that nation was ruled by Rome at that time. So
wow. So what does that mean today then?
Well, for Christians, because Christians, we have the gospel. We're saved by grace through faith, not by our works. The idea then is that in the epistles it says that the Christians are to give what they've set aside in their heart, not under compulsion, as if somebody's exacting it from them. But this is something that's done cheerfully, as they're able to, as they believe they want to, because God loves a cheerful giver. So the idea is that Christians are to support their churches, because the work of the gospel and preaching and stuff like that is to be supported. Those who preach the gospel are to make their living by the gospel according to the scriptures. So, but it's not an exact 10%, or God's going to curse you. It's give what you can and give what you set aside, because God loves a cheerful giver.
And do you think these mega churches they've just got the structural problem of they just need the money to exist, compared with, say, the Catholic Church, which has already got heaps of property and actually doesn't need any more money, so it's less likely to be prone to squeezing every last cent out of their congregation?
Well, I think the Catholic Church has historically understood the proper understanding of tithing. But you're right about this. These modern megachurches are very expensive buildings to build, and it takes a lot of money to hire the staff necessary to put the program and the show on every week after week. And so they've got themselves in a bind, and that is if they don't come up with the money, they're not going to make their salary, and they're not going to be able to pay their mortgage. So I think a lot of the pressure that these pastors are feeling, they're passing that along to the people in the congregation and strong-arming them and literally creating up brand new doctrines regarding tithing that have never been heard before.
There's so much more I want to talk to you about, so maybe you can come on again another time, because I wanted to talk also about, but we've run out of time, about Christian music in churches.
Okay.
Because, it's quite interesting, to say the least. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you can come on again. Thank you.
Sunday Night Saffron.
With John Safran and Father Bob Maguire on Triple J.
Fleet Foxes with Lorelei from the album Helplessness Blues. You can catch them playing at the Falls Festival. Plus, next year they'll be playing shows for Triple J to get the year started in January. And if you're in WA, you can see them in Busselton during Southbound. But coming up tonight, we've got a DJ from Turkey who'll be joining us with some Sufi beats for Religious Song of the Week. And very soon we'll head to California to talk to Ray Comfort, a church minister who hangs out with Kirk Cameron of Growing Pains fame. Probably don't remember, but that was a huge TV sitcom in the 80s, kiddies. The minister believes, Minister Comfort, that abortion is a bit like the Holocaust. I wonder what feminist blogger and writer Clementine Ford will think about that. I'm leaving the room when they'll be at it. She'll be joining us too. So this is Sunday Night Saffron. Johnny?
Mr. Fu contacted me again.
Mr. Fu?
Do you remember Mr. Fu from about a month ago? We gave him that name because we don't want to use his real name. He's the one.
What did he say?
He's the one who said he heard you were a Freemason.
Oh,
and
Mr. Fu.
And then he messaged me at that time. He said, I shook Father Bob's hand today. He did not say anything, but he appeared to respond to my Masonic gesture. He reached out to shake my hand again as I left and thanked me for coming. He's messaged me again.
What's he saying?
Over lunch today, Major Noel Denton, do you know him? He's about 65, told me about the time, about 40 years ago perhaps, that the chronically inappropriate Captain Eric Rule, any of these names ringing a bell?
Go on.
Said something particularly blasphemous, which led Father Bob Maguire to take Rule out with a classic rugby tackle, ejecting him from a marquee tent.
No, he's mad, this bloke. Mad, stark raving mad. Go on. What is he? A talking lizard.
He said, well done. Bob, I can't help but feel
See, these people cook these things up and they also forget, just because a lot of us are Catholic priests, all right, got round heads, Irish potato heads, and we've got lumpy bodies because we were force-fed on gruel, you see. They think that Father Bloggs who did something like that, I know a few priests who would have done something like that. Wasn't me, mate.
I can't help
Get
but
rid
feel...
of him, Wolf. Can't you stop him or push something?
I can't help but feel I was teasing out of David Icke, the lizard.
Yeah, well, you got the lizard. You got his reposts.
You got too excited and you had to scream, the lizard, the lizard.
The lizards. I thought, well...
So I was like easing into it.
Yeah, but you think I frightened him away. But he went on with one of those long-winded, didn't he? And said, listen, if you want to read about all those too deep and meaningful for this program and for the time we can spend here, because we haven't got 9 hours, have we? You see?
Not wanting to talk about
but
the lizard.
At least you tempted him.
I had I don't know if a fight's the right word, but I bought a $29 dustbuster from an appliance store.
What's it do?
It's like a little vacuum cleaner.
Oh, a little vacuum cleaner.
Yes. Get it home, not working. So I go back the next day, and I just assumed,
What, you just hand it over?
Yeah, went back the next day.
With the receipt?
I said, the dustbuster, it's just not working, or whatever. And the woman was like, yeah, that's strange. And already, like, in that moment, it all flipped around. It was no longer they were these jerks who'd sold me this defaulty product. Suddenly, I'm je accuse.
Yes.
Like, suddenly I'm in some scam where I buy a $29 dustbuster, then return the next day and want another one because, look, imagine if I get away with that.
Yes.
And then she called over some other guy. He came over and he did that Channel 10 show Lie to Me?
Yes.
where he's an investigator. And so the other guy, I can tell, he's like looking in my eyes and he's processing. He's like, if he darts his eyes to the left, he's lying. If he darts his eyes to the right, he's telling the truth. So suddenly there's like two people and it's like I'm in some scam where surely like the most logical thing is like they sell mass-produced crap from China.
Yes.
And so occasionally something's not going to work.
Yes. Did they try it?
That's like I can't even think of what an option B besides that is going to be.
Did they try it?
Yeah, but they were like,
it.
and then they were trying to trip me up. It reminded me of, like, they said, well, how many times did you use it? And I said, 4, but like 4 short times, separate. So not really 4 times, but, and then like I'm starting to sweat. Like
suddenly, of sweat.
Yeah, suddenly it's like
body language.
Well, is it 1 time or is it 4 times?
Good God! And what happened? What happened at the end?
Well,
did you flounce out or just fling it at them?
I got my...
Did you get another one?
Yeah, my dustbuster.
They just put you through the ordeal.
Yeah. Hey, screw you guys. The whole thing was a scam, man.
Yeah.
Man, I've really pulled one over you.
Oh, God, eh? So that was a good resolution after you came back from the United States of America. I must not have dust in here.
Yeah. It seems like my anecdotes have really... Dropped. Like week 1, I burnt all the Ku Klux Klan in Mississippi ones. Yeah. Now week 2, I'm on to some dustbuster.
Yeah, but I mean, we should really go back to that Grand Dragon sooner or later.
The Grand Dragon?
Yes, you inflicted that on me.
The former Grand Dragon?
Yeah. Because as he was confessing his crimes, I was compromised morally.
Why?
I should have left the building.
What do you mean?
Well, we're going to have all kinds of people. Now we've got this other clown who's been on, telling us about lizards running the universe. And we're sitting here as though, you see, the kiddies are saying to themselves, what's happened to these guys? They've always been these two-timing, soft as marshmallow.
The kiddies love the lizard. Can I just tell you, no one was listening to David Icke going too much lizard. It was like, if only he could have cut
more,
out
if we could have
more
got him
lizards.
to 9 hours of lizards.
And less of his kind of like platitudes about capitalism.
God, and fluoride in the water, comrade. Is he listening to this as we speak?
What's
wrong with fluoride?
Do you know the other thing
water?
that Sir Pell, the producer, said when
What?
she told us that David Icke said to her, we can't bring up the lizards.
Yes.
Don't mention lizards. That he said in a vaguely threatening manner.
What?
That people have tried to, screw him over before and they've regretted it.
Ooh. What do you reckon? I'll go home and find a little lizard perched on the windowsill. Eh? And during the night it'll become a big lizard and then gobble Father up and Father's dog. See, what are you doing to us, Jono, since you've come back from the United States of America? It's a bit creepy.
We've got...
Because if he confessed that he murdered people...
He did?
The Grand Dragon.
Did he say
you weren't listening, were you?
He didn't say he murdered anyone. He said he hurt people, didn't he?
I suppose he said he hurt people.
No,
but then again, you're saying in the cause of truth, one can't just pick and choose, otherwise one will become an evangelical radio station oneself,
Yeah.
Because during the discussion on abortion, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be one of the Roman Catholic, So I get a bit...
you just leave it up to Clementine Ford.
No. This is what we should be doing. We should be listening to both sides of the argument.
Coming up next, Clementine Ford will be talking to Ray Comfort about a new documentary, 180, all about abortion.
Yes, indeed.
You're listening to Sunday Night Saffron with John Saffron and Father Bob Maguire on Triple J.
From Spain, that's El Guincho with Bombay from the album Pop Negro. This is Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J. I'm Bob, and that's John.
Yes, we have 2 guests with us now, one in the studio, one in California. In California, we have Minister Ray Comfort, who's the founder and CEO of Living Waters. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing good, thank you.
That's good. And in the studio, we have a journalist and blogger and feminist who's written an article about abortion herself, Clementine Ford. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, John. How are you?
Now, first, Ray, explain this new film you've put out, 180.
180movie.com is a free website that shows 8 people changing their minds about abortion because they asked them one question. And It's had over 1 million views in 22 days, and it gives another perspective for people who think abortion is okay. And we're very excited that so many people are open-minded to consider what we've got to say. It's very fast-moving. It's 33 minutes, and it's gone viral.
And as you say, it's not trying to preach to the converted. It's trying to preach to people who are currently pro-choice.
Yeah, the majority of young people in America have been brainwashed to thinking that abortion is a woman's choice. And what I do is just give them another perspective so that they can make a good moral judgment. And I'm delighted that people are open-minded enough just to listen and let me reason with them. And we've got 8 people on camera who are adamantly pro-abortion, changing their minds and becoming pro-life. So that's huge in America particularly because so many people are pro-choice and they've never really given it some deep thought.
So can you try it on Clementine to see if you can turn her around?
Well, let me talk to Clementine first and see how she's doing. How you doing, Clementine?
I'm well, thanks, Ray. How are you?
Good. So you think abortion's okay?
Oh, I absolutely think that it's the choice of a woman to choose what happens to her body and when she does or does not have children.
Have you seen the 180movie.com?
I have seen it, actually.
You have?
I have seen it, yes.
So what did you think? Do you think I'm off?
I think that you're an incredibly intelligent person who knows how to manipulate a particular audience. I think that the fact that the majority of the people who you spoke to admitted at the beginning that they'd never even heard of Adolf Hitler indicates a lack of intellectual awareness in the people that you chose. And I think that that combined with the fact that you then went on to use key points about World War II and the Holocaust to try and convince them against pro-choice arguments, and also combined that with the fact that people, when faced with someone who they feel is maybe intellectually a bit more intelligent than them, then they can be intimidated by that. I think that those things all contributed with human psychology to bring them around to your viewpoint. I think you're very smart. I think you're very wrong.
Well, I don't think I'm very smart at all. I think I just use reason, and I've got to disagree with you, Clementine. These kids are college students. They're not stupid.
College students who didn't know who Adolf Hitler was?
Yeah, but give me a minute. I think it's lacking perception to say they're unintelligent.
I think that if you can get to this stage at 2011 and be in college in America, then there's either something incredibly wrong with the college system in America, or they are not very smart. If they've never heard of
maybe
the
Ray,
Holocaust.
you can talk a bit about some of the questions you asked. And
well, I'd just like to back up and address what Clementine's saying because I think it's a very important point. These kids are not unintelligent. I think it's a lack of perception on the part of those who think so. What's happened is they've been let down by the American education system. They didn't know who Adolf Hitler was because America hasn't educated their young people. In 5 states have mandatory teaching for Holocaust.
Do you think that they've been?
Australia.
Do you think they've been spending too much time brainwashing them about abortion?
Schools aren't teaching this, so these kids aren't unintelligent. I spoke to them. I know they are intelligent. They're college students. So that's the problem. It's not that they're stupid, and it's not that they can be manipulated. I don't manipulate anyone. I don't make up people's minds. I just challenge them with reason and logic. And that's why over 1 million people watched that video in 22 days, and we've got thousands and thousands of people writing to us and saying this is incredible, it's wonderful, it's mind-changing, it gives another perspective. So that's all I do is just give another perspective, and I don't manipulate people, and people aren't that so stupid that they can be manipulated.
I think it actually is quite manipulative to try and relate the Holocaust to abortion. Because
maybe I think one of you is going to have to fill in the listeners about this connection between abortion and the Holocaust so we know what's being argued about.
Well, it was Ray's
film.
film.
To do that?
Please do that, Ray.
Okay, I'm Jewish, and I'm grieved beyond words. I wrote a book called Hitler, God, and the Bible.
Sorry to interrupt you, but how can you be Jewish and a Christian minister? I mean that respectfully, just so I understand.
Yeah, my mum's Jewish, and I've got Jewish blood.
That you believe in Jesus Christ as a saviour?
Oh, yes. The first Christians were Jews. Jesus was Jewish. Israel is where Christianity came from. It's as Jewish as you can get.
Sure. But most Jews, just so the listening audience understands, most Jews don't believe what you believe. They don't believe in Jesus as the saviour.
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, not most Jews, because a lot of Jews in America have become Christians.
Sure.
A lot of people become Christians. So
anyway, putting that to one side.
Blood. And so I went my way through the Holocaust when I was researching for this book called Hitler, God, and the Bible. And I read where the Nazis buried or shot 300 Jews in a pit and then buried many of them while they were still alive using bulldozers. So I just put people in that same moral scenario. I said, if a Nazi had a gun at your head, would you bury Jews alive? If they said, we're going to kill you if you don't, and we'll do it ourselves. You can live if you do. And most people said, no, I could never do that. I couldn't bury Jews alive. And I said, why is that? Is it because you're a compassionate person? They said, yes, I value human life. So I said, what do you think about abortion? And they said, oh, it's a woman's choice. And I said, do you think it's a baby in the womb? And when they said yes, which most people do believe it's a baby in the womb,
I think
said,
that
well,
that's a bit of a stretch. You can't assert
Well,
that. You have no evidence to back that up. I don't think that it's. I don't think that it's a human being that's fully formed and that has a life that it has determination. No.
Clementine, let me just tell you what science says. Science tells us that at 6 weeks, 6 days, the baby in the womb has a heartbeat, it has eyes, it has a mouth, it has hands. DNA is sparked at the point of conception. In the DNA is the person's eye color, hair color, their height, their personality. Life has begun, the moment of conception. Now, you may disagree, but what Hitler did is that he dehumanized the Jews. He said they're not human, and that gave him a license to legally kill them. And that's exactly what America and Australia and many other nations have done. They said it is not a baby in the womb, therefore we can legally terminate it, we can kill it. And all I do is say, well, give me a reason for killing a baby in the womb. Just give me a reason. And people can't come up with a justifiable reason.
But what you've actually also done in that scenario is you've related an entire race of people who have, a cultural background, communities, people who were eradicated based on a political ideology. You've tried to connect that somehow with a seemingly random series of events, and that's women choosing whether or not they're going to have a baby or not. I think that to relate people,
I thought it wasn't a baby.
That's that's semantics. I don't believe that it's a human being in the fact that it has determination.
That's exactly what Hitler said. That was his justification for killing Jews. I
don't think that a child, a baby, a fetus, whatever you want to call it, growing inside a woman's body that cannot survive outside of that woman's body, I don't think that that is exactly the same at all as any human being, and I certainly don't think that it's the same as a race of people who were eradicated by a Nazi dictator.
Clementine, a baby can't survive outside the womb. It dies if it's not taken care of by the mother. So you're doing exactly what Adolf Hitler did. You're saying it's not human, therefore I have the right to kill it.
Well, I do think that women have the right to have abortions. So I guess in that sense, I do think that they have a right to kill their fetuses.
That's right. That's what you believe. And I'd love to see you change. I'd love to see you open your heart, soften your heart. Do you have a belief in God, Clementine?
I have a personal spiritual belief in what I choose to believe as God.
Do you know what that's called?
What's that called?
It's called idolatry, when you make up a God to suit yourself, and I did it before I was a Christian. I created a God in my image.
I know, I've just broken the first commandment, haven't I?
It's the first and second commandments, actually. And I did it before I was a Christian. I was guilty of that. I used to pray every night to the God of my own creation, a God I could snuggle up to, a God I felt comfortable with, but it wasn't a God who said, you shall not kill. In fact, the God of the Bible says, if you hate someone, you're a murderer.
So let's just go back to, the sixth commandment then, thou shalt not kill. Do you believe that murder should be punished?
Of course. I value
Okay, so how would you punish someone for murdering their neighbour?
Well, I just leave it up to civil law. And
what do you think is an appropriate punishment for someone who has murdered their neighbour, legally speaking?
That's up to civil law. I don't make that judgment.
But you make a lot of judgments about the things morally that people are allowed to do. So you must have some idea. If you could personally create a legal punishment for someone who murdered their neighbour, what would that be?
I don't know. I leave it up to criminal law, and that's what I'd.
All right. Well, if you won't commit to giving a punishment,
I wouldn't take the law into my own hands.
Do you believe then that women who have abortions are murdering their unborn children?
They're taking the life of their unborn child. Yeah. And
do you believe it's murder?
Of course.
So do you believe that they should be punished equally by the law?
Not by the law in America, and I'd like to see that law change.
So you think that they're different then? You think that a person... You think that... No. I just want you to answer that question. You think someone who murders their neighbour, that's murder, and you think a woman who murders her baby, because they're the same thing, they're a human life, you think that's murder too, but you think they're actually different when it comes to punishment.
If the law didn't allow it, we would have 53 million Americans in this country who would be alive if the law didn't.
Okay, so if the law didn't allow it and it was to be punishable, do you think it should have an equal punishment to someone who murders their neighbour?
That's up to criminal law, but I think that wouldn't.
I think you're avoiding the question because I think that you do actually agree that they're not the same.
I know that's what you believe, and that's why you think it's okay to kill your child. I don't believe that, and I'm going to stand up for the unborn with all my heart until the moment I die.
Okay, Bob.
We have to agree to differ.
John?
But I would encourage people, it's a free movie, to watch 180movie.com and make your own minds up.
I just have one more question for you, Ray,
Yes,
because I watched your film and I enjoyed all of the illogical scenarios that you presented to your guests. So I have a choice for you. So you're on a cliff and you have two people. They've fallen off the side of the cliff and you're holding on to both of them, but you can only save one of them. You have to let one of them go in order to save the other one and have the strength to pull them up. Are you married?
Yes.
Okay, so one of them's your wife and one of them's a stranger. Who would you choose?
My wife, obviously.
Obviously. So given what you know, given a future that you've already envisaged with your wife and one that you feel comfortable with and one that you love and one that you have determination in, obviously you would regretfully, because you have to sacrifice another life, if that's the way you feel about it, you would choose your wife as opposed to a stranger. Can you see how women who might choose abortion might feel the same way? That they've already determined what they want. They've already determined what they want their life to be. And so given the choice between an unknown quantity and something that they know and understand, they choose what they know and understand.
One moment, there's something wrong with your little scenario, and that is I'm not murdering that person. I'm not deliberately taking the life of that person.
Well, you are. You're letting them go.
I've got two people in front of me. One's my wife, one's a stranger. The stranger is going to come into my home and inconvenience me. Therefore, I will kill the stranger and not my wife. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying you have to make a choice, and that, to me, is exactly when you use hypotheticals the way that you do in your film 180.
Like you just did.
Yeah, exactly. I'm using your tactic back to you because I don't think that it's a way to actually logically argue something. I think that you can go to 8 people on the street and you can ask them whether or not they would bulldoze a pit of Jews if they were put in that situation. But the actual fact is, as horrific a hypothetical as that you've presented to them, no one knows what they'll do in a situation when it comes to their life. You know, if you've got some soldier standing there with a gun against your head saying you have to kill this person, you can sit there and you can hypothesize about it all you like, but you don't know what you're going to do until you're faced with that situation.
Exactly.
And I wonder how many people who initially would say I could never ever have an abortion would change their minds if they were suddenly faced with an unwanted pregnancy.
Clementine, no one's putting a gun to your head and saying kill your child. You're doing it of your own free will because you don't want to be inconvenienced by that child, and that's abhorrent.
I don't think it's necessarily a case of not being inconvenienced. I think sometimes women make choices about their lives because they have an idea of what they want their life to be. Now, the reason that I had an abortion was because I was, for a start, 24 years old. I didn't have enough money. I certainly didn't have a supportive partner. It was unplanned. It was unplanned in the sense that I was on a form of contraception that was supposed to be 100% effective and turned out not to be. I didn't have it.
Clementine, why didn't you have the baby adopted instead of killing it?
Because I didn't want to have a baby. I didn't want to go through 9 months of having a baby.
You didn't want to be inconvenient.
Well, actually, no. I didn't want to be emotionally tormented by having a child and having to give it up. To me, I think that there's something very different about giving birth to a 9-month-old child and then giving it away to someone than there is having an abortion at 12 weeks, where I don't think that is a human being, as I said, that has any kind of self-determination yet.
Just like what Adolf Hitler said, it's not human, therefore we can legally kill it.
I think that Godwin's laws just come into play.
Yeah.
Who's?
Oh, Godwin's law is an internet tool that the argument is basically over when someone accuses you of being Hitler.
I see.
I didn't accuse you of being Hitler. I said it's the same philosophy that Hitler used in saying it's not human, therefore I have the right to kill it. Think what you're saying. Listen to your conscience and think about your conception of God. It's so erroneous, Clementine. Look at what the God of the Bible says. Listen to what your conscience says, and you know it's wrong to kill your own child.
Well, I've done a little bit of research into the Bible, and yes, I'm not a Christian minister, so I wouldn't say at all that I'm anywhere near as well versed in it as you or Father Bob.
So the Minister Ray, what does the Bible say about abortion?
It says it's wrong to kill. It says if you take the life of a child, if you take the life of any human being, you're to give your life, and it says for he's made in the image of God. The difference between human beings and the beasts of the field is that human beings have a sense of justice and righteousness and truth. We set up court systems because we believe in right and wrong. And God greatly values human life to a point where he says if you take someone's life, you give your life. And when the law loses that strength, that power, then people go ahead and have no regard for human life at all. And that's what we see happening within society. And the basis of that That error is idolatry, making up a god to suit yourself, therefore you can do what you want. And Hitler did exactly the same thing. He had his own concept of God. He made up his own Jesus. He had his own Bible. He got rid of the Old Testament. He had no fear of God. He said, God's a tyrant. He doesn't want you to do the things that you want to do. And then he went ahead and did what he wanted to do. And it's an absolute tragedy when a woman takes her own child. The safest place on earth should be the womb of a woman, where the baby's nurtured and given life. And then if you don't want your child, have it adopted. There are so many people waiting to adopt these beloved children, and they're being killed instead, and they're being paid big money. In America, if you want to kill your 16-week baby, it'll cost you $765. If it's a 19-week baby, it's $2,165.
Well, there's certainly no doubt that they've got it wrong in Australia, because it should be something that is available in the healthcare system, like it is in Australia.
Yeah.
If people want to see your film, Ray, it's at 180movie.com. And if they
180movie.com, and when you watch it, you ask yourself, am I manipulating people, or am I giving them information so they can make a moral judgment themselves? And that's all that's happening, and we're getting multitudes of letters. There's been over 21,000 comments on the YouTube channel. We're getting thousands of letters, and many, many people are saying, I didn't know, and I've changed my mind about abortion.
I think it was an excellent exercise in misinformation, and very well made.
If you want to read more about of Clementine Ford's work, you go to clementineford.com.au. Thank you very much for joining us, Ray.
Thank you for having me on your program, and nice to talk to you, Clementine. I hope you have a good day.
Yes, you too, Ray.
And thank you, Clementine.
Thanks very much.
Sunday Night Saffron
on Triple J.
That song from our stunning new Australian feature album Forever So. The track was called Hunter. The band is Melbourne's Husky. They'll be touring for Triple J from November 6. Plus you can catch them at Laneway next year. You're listening to Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J with John and Bobby.
I knew Husky not only before he was famous, but like when he was a kiddie.
A baby.
He went to the same Jewish summer camp as but he was like when I was 16, he would have been like 8 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
So I can't look at him seriously anymore with that beard.
Yeah. Did he show signs when he was in school? No, nobody shows signs, do they?
I was very... Can you imagine? I was even more self-absorbed back then than now.
Yeah.
I barely registered anyone around me.
No?
I was just walking around in my own head.
Yeah? Was the school full of little boys walking around in their own heads? Because I was watching that DVD you gave me to watch about religion and about the beginning of the universe and all that, and the wall, the Wailing Wall, and the yeshiva with lots of little boys. But what are they doing when they're bowing all the time at the wall and while they're reading the Bible? What does the bowing do? Is it not called bowing, is it?
Davening. Yeah, I think it's to build up an ecstatic state of an ecstatic.
So it's not just
what's
reading.
That word I'm looking for? Ecstatic.
That'll do. It's not just reading, of course. It's entering into it. It's body language.
Yeah, to get into this kind of mystical zone.
Thank you. I understand. Thank you. So we've got tonight, haven't we? No, in a minute we've got the man from the Sufi man, you see? And that's about ecstasis as well, with the whirling dervish. Yeah? See?
It's coming up after this.
Religious Song of the Week. Religious Song of the Week.
This is Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J. That was a song called Hayal Nameh, which means dreamlike. We're joined by Icke from Turkey, sometimes known as Merjan Dede.
And he's in Istanbul, not Constantinople. How are you?
Thank you very much, and how are you?
Good. Now, Sufism. What's Sufism?
Sufism is the process of knowing yourself, who you are, where you are coming from, where are you going. Those ideas, they are not very popular today, but they're essential. So it's a process of self-discovery, I would say.
And is it a branch of Islam?
Well, it originated in Islam, but also Sufism is as old as, I think, the history of humans. So it really I wouldn't connect to the very specific religion, but I would say that it flourished in Islam because Islamic tradition, especially the 13th century, was very open the idea to use the Sufism to understand about the humanity, but also in India, Middle East, all around the world. Even the source of shamanism, when you look at it, you could see that it's really parallel to the Sufism as well. So
what's the connection? Did you say between shamanism and Sufism there's a connection?
Of course. I think that explains why the Turks accepted the Sufism so powerfully because we come from Central Asia, and our roots were shamanistic roots. And in a way, I do believe also that explains why we are one of the very few countries in the world, even though 99% of our population is Muslim, but yet we are a democratic society because we come for that type of more open-minded tradition. That is my way of looking at it. But now Sufism is spreading all around the world, and it's a very humanistic, very insightful perspective about life. That's what I would say.
Now, the most famous aspect of Sufism is the whirling dervishes, where people wear those hats and they have those long garbs and they spin around.
That's correct.
Are there other secret Sufi practices that you only hear about behind closed doors that you'll now tell us over the radio?
Of course, there are many, of course, and they're not really close the doors, but some of them is more open to public, some of them is more like in a closed circles, and mainly those whirling dervishes are the one of them. They are very well known because they are very open to public, and also they perform whirling dervishes ceremony all around the world, not only in Turkey. But then the Cerahi order, there's another order. Those are also. If you visit Turkey and if you visit Istanbul, you wouldn't see them, but if you know someone, they will take you there. Again, there are almost like only in Istanbul, there are more than 42 different branches of it. But at the end, what we say about them, it is like if you want to go to downtown, you can take lots of different paths, but at the end, they will all take you to the same places. So they have very different take, but especially the whirling dervishes, they focus on art, music, culture, dance as an essential process. And that's why I am more connected.
And have you ever seen anything magical and unexplainable yourself with Sufism?
Oh, of course.
Like what?
Of course. I always see magical and unexplainable things, but then when you start to learn about them,
so give us an example. Give us an example of something in Sufism that you've seen that's been unexplainable and magical.
Well, for example, there are certain ceremonies that but I mean, the silly thing is that those are very personal experiences. And when you try to convert those, if you come to Istanbul, I will take you. I will hold your hand. I will take you to those places. You will experience them, and then you go back to your beautiful radio program and tell the people it's your own experiences.
This is what I've heard. I heard this from someone who told me that a Sufi master told them this, that the Sufi master could chop off his hand, and then the hand would go running across the room, then running back, like on its fingertips, and then it would connect back with the arm.
Well, that must be a very trippy experience. But I can tell the one thing. It's one of my first involvements with Sufism. I was at the university in Istanbul, and one night I had a dream. It was a very specific dream. It wasn't a big dream, but it was a very, very specific dream. Like, it's not like an ordinary dream. So the next day, I was walking in this book bazaar. They sell old used books. And in one of those places, I went inside. I didn't know that place is actually run by a Sufi order. And I was looking at these beautiful, beautiful magical papers. We call paper marbling, old ancient papers. And when I was looking at them, the guy asked me, "What are you looking at?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm just looking at things." And he turned to me, he smiled, and he said, "You are looking at that object from your dreams." And he named exactly the object I dreamed the night before. And
what was the object?
I can't tell you. This was a very personal thing. And I never met this man before. I didn't know that place, and I didn't tell my dream to anyone. So there are always things like that. When they're really, when they're master, they never consider themselves master. That's one of the things. In Sufism, everything is about modesty. So real master never claim to be master. And as we say in Sufism, the one who knows never claim to be known. So, but when you're in front of them, somehow, in some way, they really know what is going on, not only in your mind, but what's going on in your heart, what's going on in your dreams. That's a very personal connection. And it's a magical connection. But the point is, as they always also teach you, that this is really not like running a magic circus. Even the people that have the power, they never show those power, because the show-off is one of the opposite side of the modesty. So it is more about self-discovery and, more importantly, try to be nice to others. I remember in one of the very deep philosophical conversation with one of the masters. There were many, many people, they were talking about deep topics. He turned to people, he said, look, at the end of the day, what we try to teach is just be nice. Just be nice to yourself and for the others.
Yeah,
and
sure,
that's what we try to be.
That's fine, but it is nice if it's nice, plus a little bit of like levitation or something like that. That'd be really.
If you're nice to yourself, and you already levitate, you can trust on that. Which this is not a really new teaching. If you even read the Osho, if you read Buddha, they always talk about that. What keeps us connected and very heavy, my friend, is the worries about past. And also worries about the future. If we stop those things, if we just focus one moment to your breathing in this moment, right in this moment, then you levitate more than you can imagine. So it is about, again, it comes back to us. It's not about supernatural, but about really connected who we are.
Icke and his new project, Istanbul Quartet, will be performing at the Art Centre Playhouse. That's in Melbourne on the 20th of November as part of AWME. Who knows what that stands for? It's probably something magical and mystical. And I understand you'll be both levitating and also chopping off your hand and watching it run across the room. So everyone can look forward to that.
We will pass the chopping heads because we don't want to chop anything, but definitely we will have a magical whirling dervish.
Yeah, there will be a whirling dervisher there, so that's as good. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, same. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in Istanbul, and I will take you to a magical place you can see the levitation.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, my friend.
Okay, bye-bye.
You're listening to Sunday Night Saffron on Triple J.
Panther Shrine, that's fire, Santa Rosa, fire! And it's time to head home, isn't it?
We've had David Icke on tonight.
Yes, memorable. Closely followed
by Chris Rosebrough.
Rosebrough. The
Lutheran
pirate.
to the stars. We've had Ray Comfort and Clementine.
Yes, didn't
Ford.
we? Yes, slugging it out. And at the end, you had Mr. Icke. So don't forget, you can send us a tweet, ladies and gentlemen, at Father Bob or the John at John Safran. Simple. And you can tweet our producer, Sayapil, on at SOIPL. And you can also send us your messages on Facebook or just go to our Triple J page, www.triplej.net.au/Safran.
And you can download this as a podcast.
Yes, and get run over on those pedestrians.